Well, today is Saturday. It is January. What is January today? Oh, fuck, it's the 9th already? Damn. Year's going quick. I'm not going to mention what happened this week. We already know that shit, so let's move on from that fucking insurrectionist shit anyway. You know, myself and a lot of other people, probably, you guys that are watching, have a fondness for character actors. One actor in particular, however, he was known as Britain's greatest actor. And he was an actor with actually no training whatsoever, no stage experience. And that actor was Oliver Reed, who made a ton of movies. One of them was an early Hammer film called Curse of the Werewolf. But Ollie was one of those guys, he made great movies. I mean, he really made some good movies, then toward the end of his career, like everybody else, he made some dreck. But sometimes his off-camera antics were a lot more interesting than some of the films he made. And, co-starring with certain people, that he had some experiences with, whatever, but I actually had to write some of this shit down to keep track of it because it got so completely out of control. We all know that Ollie's last role was as the slaver in The Gladiator. And on that film, before it was finished, he had a massive heart attack in Malta, sitting in a bar, drinking 3 bottles of Captain Morgan or spiced rum, 8 bottles of German beer, numerous double shots of Hennessy and Grouse whiskey, and Hennessy cognac rather, and then arm wrestled a bunch of British sailors that were a lot younger than he was, and then hit the floor with a fatal heart attack at age 61. It cost the film company $3 million to sort of computer generate his face so they could finish the movie. But that wasn't, the only Ollie story out there. There's tons of them. Back in 1969, I was cutting school, and I went up on 42nd Street, of course. And there was a movie playing called Hannibal Rooks, which co-starred Oliver Reed and Michael J. Pollard. Now, I remembered Michael J. Pollard from Bonnie and Clyde and the Wild Angels, and he was like very hot property at the time. But he was also a drug addict and alcoholic, too. So Michael Winner is going to shoot this movie involving an elephant. Of course, they had to have 2 elephants because you have to have them in pairs. And basically the premise is that a bunch of POWs were taking care of a zoo and decided to escape with the elephant over, I guess, the Alps like Hannibal did back in the Roman days or something. So Ollie wanted to bond with the elephant and sleep with it, which really didn't work because elephants are trained by certain people and are, can be, loyal to their trainers, and an outsider isn't welcome. Well, this elephant in particular didn't like Ollie and tried to kill him at least twice, once trying to push him off a narrow ledge, and the other time trying to crush him against the wall. So Ollie's bonding with the elephant really didn't work too well. The other thing was when Ollie, they were in, I'm trying to think, where were they? They were in Austria, I believe. And when Ollie checked into hell and walked into the hotel and, looked around in the bar, he saw a bunch of flags but not one British Union Jack. And he told the bartender, he goes, I come down here tomorrow morning and I don't see a British Union Jack hanging up. I'm going to wreck the place. And true to form, Ollie went down, didn't see a British Union Jack, started ripping the flags down, throwing them on the floor, pissing on them and throwing chairs out the window. So they kept moving from hotel to hotel, where Ollie would do the same shit over and over again. So Michael Winner had cornered Michael J. Pollard and said, listen, you're a good actor and you're on a real roll here. Why are you so fucked up on drugs and alcohol? And Michael J. Pollard looked at him and said, you're not in the same hotel with Oliver Reed. And Michael Winner said, Michael, that's the only acceptable answer I'll take. So yeah, Ollie was a fucking character. I remember one time when I was with Chiller Theater that his name came up as someone we would like to have there. Well, Vernon Wells was standing around and overheard us talking, and he says, no, you don't want Ollie there. Well, we said, why? He goes, well, for one thing, he'll do 2 things to get your attention. He'll either walk up and punch you in the face or stick his cock in your drink. Seems that Ollie had a rose tattooed on his private parts. And he was exceedingly proud of that. So, yeah, well, we said, you know, well, somebody suggested maybe we would put a no alcohol clause in his contract, which, yeah, that would really fucking work with 7 fucking operating bars in a hotel. So Vernon said, well, listen, I was at a fucking thing down in Australia, and they were involved, and Ollie got shit-faced, went up to his room, which might have been on the 5th or 6th floor, drew his bath, kept it running, got in the bathtub, fell asleep, and flooded out all the floors underneath him. That was one thing. He worked on a film, low-budget thing, directed by John Bud Cardos, called Coast of Skeletons, co-starring Herbert Lom, Ernest Borgnine, and a bunch of other people. And he said something to Bud one night about, let's go outside, I want to talk to you about something. And basically, Ollie wanted to fight Bud. Now, I don't know who won the fight. Bud was no slouch, but this is what Ollie liked to do. Drink, fuck, and fight. So, even at one point, he was considered to be a candidate for playing James Bond. But they said, you know, because of his bar fighting and alcohol, you know, it wouldn't work. There was another film he did with, what the hell was it? The Hunting Party. It was a spaghetti western that was not really spaghetti-ish, but was shot in Spain with Gene Hackman, Candice Bergen, L.Q. Jones, Ollie, and Mitchell Ryan. Well, Ollie bonded with Mitchell Ryan. In an interview, Mitchell said, you know, we were the bad boys. We were out every night getting drunk, wrecking bars, and we'd act up on set, which sort of pissed off, you know, the other actors like Simon Oakland, Gene Hackman, L.Q. Jones, and others. So there was an ultimatum. Somebody had to go, and it wasn't about to be Ollie, Mitchell said. It was going to be him. So Mitchell was sent home and sat it out. Well, 2 weeks later, he gets a call that he's wanted back on the set because Ollie just refused to work with anybody else but Mitchell. So he came back, and they, you know, finished the movie, which was pretty brutal. It was another, you know, Wild Bunch type knockoff thing with a lot of blood squibs and shit like that. Another film he was in, which I knew would be problems, was Venom, where he co-starred with Klaus Kinski. Now, Klaus Kinski is a notorious scene stealer and notoriously difficult to work with. Also, he's a short guy, small guy, and Ollie is big and towers over him. Well, Ollie was playing along with Klaus's bullshit to a point where Ollie had his arm in a doorway and Klaus just walked in and knocked his arm out of the way. Now it's on. Now, Ollie was smart enough to know that him beating the shit out of Klaus wouldn't have gone over too well, so he just basically baited him every chance he got, like banging on his trailer and calling him a little Nazi cunt and things like that. So if you pick up the DVD or Blu-ray of Venom, the director's commentary is on there, and he'll tell you all the trials and tribulations of dealing with Ollie and Klaus on the set. Another film role that Ollie didn't get was supposedly on Cutthroat Island, when, you know, he was, I guess, auditioning, or maybe he was cast and fired, but he was in a bar talking about stuff, and I guess he exposed himself to Gina Davis and said something about rubbing semen through his hair or something like that. I mean, he was really fucked up, and then I guess he got in a bar fight, and they fired him. Well, the culmination of drinking might have been on the set of The Great Scout and Cat House Thursday, where he co-starred with Lee Marvin, another power drinker. And according to what Ollie said in an interview, that he and Lee had a drinking contest, and after 10 hours of straight drinking, Lee Marvin passed out. So basically, Oliver Reed outdrank the legendary Lee Marvin. God. His motto, his ambition, he said in one of his books, was to drink in every pub, screw all the women he could, and get in as many fights as he can. There was something where he was on a talk show where a guy was also on who had written a tell-all book about Marilyn Monroe that wasn't too complimentary to Maryland. Well, Ollie had already been interviewed and was sitting off to the side when this guy was talking, and all of a sudden Ollie got outraged and started screaming at this man, "How dare you defame that woman's memory?" And Ollie took off his glasses, and the camera panned on Ollie's face, and Ollie's face was a bunch of little scars from the fights he's been in. So, sadly, you know, we lost Ollie at age 61, but another thing he did was, there was a bunch of there was 2 Philip Marlowe pictures shot, both starring Robert Mitchum. One was Farewell, My Lovely, that was shot in the States, and the other was a remake of The Big Sleep that was shot in England. Oliver Reed deferred his salary, took a big pay cut just because he wanted to work with Robert Mitchum. So on that film, you had power drinkers Oliver Reed, who behaved when he was on camera, Robert Mitchum, who pretty much behaved when he was on camera, and Richard Boone, who was in the complete throes of alcoholism then, who, at the climactic battle between him and Robert Mitchum, he was so fucked up that he couldn't pull it off, and basically they had to do a bunch of cuts to make it look good. It's really sad when you think of it, and I'll throw another name in there, Lee Van Cleef. Now, Lee Marvin, Richard Boone, and Lee Van Cleef both fought in World War II. Oliver Reed also was in the service. Now, none of these gentlemen survived long enough to collect Social Security, which really sucks because you figure, trying to think, Richard Boone died at 64, Lee Van Cleef died at 64, Lee Marvin died, I think, at 63, then Reed at 61. And it just shows you, the effect of alcohol on these great actors who, for some reason could switch it right back on when the camera was on, but off camera they became terrible messes at times, and it really shortened their lifespan and, and definitely affected some of their careers. But these guys gave us some great movies. They were great character actors, and someone asked me if I had a legendary character actor to drink with. I'd be right in between Oliver Reed and Lee Marvin. So that's a little short take for today, so we'll move on to something else.